April 16th. One of the top pound-for-pound fighters on the planet, undefeated world champion Errol Spence Jr. takes on title holder Yordenis Ugas, hot off a career-defining win. One epic stage, two dominant champions, 3 world titles on the line. Time to put up or shut up. Spence versus Ugas for the Unified Welterweight World Championship, Saturday, April 16th, live on pay-per-view.
Hey, my man, remember how intense I was when I was in the league?
Sure.
But now, I'm retired. Got everything on chill mode.
Chill mode, Mr. Garnett.
Boom! That's what I'm talking about. Big ticket hitting big parlays. Whose house is it?
Big Ticket's
Whose
house?
house is
Big
it?
Ticket's house.
Big Ticket's house.
Woo!
It's Big Ticket's house.
It's my house!
What? It's playoff time, everyone, and there's no better place to wager on the best basketball of the year than at BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, today's the day. Register now and place a $10 moneyline wager on any NBA playoff game. If either team hits a three-pointer in the game, you'll win $200 free bets, regardless of your bet's outcome. Just use the bonus code KG200, and I can't think of a better way to enjoy the playoffs than with the bankroll of free bets. Download the app and use the bonus code KG200 to win $200 when someone hits a three-pointer. Visit betmgm.com/KG certified. Peace. Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, The Ticket, and this is KG Certified, Playoff Edition, sponsored by BetMGM. So most people think, man, what's so different about the playoffs? What's so different about the playoffs? Everything. It's all different. You know what I'm saying? So much of the playoffs is about being uncomfortable. You know, Doc used to have a great saying, shout to Doc Rivers. He's always say, hey, go out here and make them uncomfortable, and then let's adjust to that. Home court is everything. The crowd, the noise. This is when you see who can really lock in, and only the cream rise to the top. Ain't no bad teams in the playoffs. Everybody's here earned their right. If you win 16 games in this, you go home with something forever. The one thing you can't get ready for or you can't predict when it comes to series are a couple things. When players get hurt, injuries, the way the games are being called with the referees, and players coming back. I'm looking at a series like Minnesota and the Grizzlies. If Pat Bev is able to impose his will like he was able to impose his will on the game against the Clippers, man, the Grizzlies are going to be into a dogfight. But I actually think that the dogfight is the Grizzlies style. You know what I'm saying? John Morant, he's seen styles of Pat Bev before. He's seen every type of different kind of guard you can have when it comes to the guard position. It's just about the stakes now. You know, it's the playoffs. You know, one turnover here, one turnover there. Hey, you missed a pass or something didn't go right. That little one turnover can lose you the game. That one turnover can actually have it to where you actually lose the game by 1 or win the game by 1. So let's get it started. Yeah. Keys to Miami is going to be just their core. They have a way that they win, head by Jimmy Butler, Bam, Tyler Hero coming off the bench. All those guys playing a big significant part, but they have great role players on that team that play well for them also. When they're playing like that, they're spirited on the other end. They're in the passing lanes, they're getting, they're getting steals, they're causing turnovers, they're giving one shot and out. When Miami's playing like that, it's hard to beat them. You know, I go to Atlanta being probably one of the hottest teams out here with Ice Trae. If you watched him last year against New York was a very volatile environment. He went in there and basically shut up the Garden. To be able to beat Miami in the series, Ice Trae is going to have big games, and he's going to have one of them games where he's getting in the paint, getting his floater off, or finding guys for open shots in the corner. If I got Miami against Atlanta in the 7-game series, I'm going to take Miami. The Toronto-Philly series, I don't think people had Toronto on the radar, if I'm being honest. They've been playing very, very spirited ball. Gary Trent Jr., shout the nephew. What up, nephew? They've been playing together. They've been out here playing and flying under the radar, too. When Philly has probably been on everybody's radar just because of the whole Ben Simmons debacle and all the trades and James Harden coming to town and all that. Philly is probably one of the teams that I think have probably the most pressure on them out of everybody. Everybody's eager to see how the James Harden Embiid combination is going to pan out. Toronto has to they got to initiate the punch first. They can't sit back and kind of let the counter punches go or be in a situation where they're trying to actually initiate before Philly actually, because, Philly's going to try to very much impose Embiid. I would make somebody else from the other team, Thibault, is not vaccinated, so he's not going to be probably available for games 3 and 4 and 6 if it's a whole 7-game series. I look for Philly to come out of the series between the Raptors. No one's talking about Milwaukee in Chicago. DeRozan having a hell of a season, and people forget that when the Bulls were healthy with Ball and Levine and Caruso and man, they got so many guys over there. I want to see how healthy Chicago is. If Chicago has that healthy cast, man, they can make this a very interesting series. But then at the end of the day, Milwaukee has, Giannis. And Giannis takes up for a lot, and he demands a lot. You got money-making Middleton over there and Holiday. It's good to see Brook Lopez back. Shout to Logan. It's good to see you back, Logan. Milwaukee's they're looking to prove something, though. They're on a whole nother tear when it comes to, entering the playoffs. They look really focused. And although I like the Bulls, I think Zach and Debo are actually going to give Milwaukee problems. I don't think they're stacked enough to beat them in a 7-game series. So I'm picking Milwaukee to win that series against the Bulls. Sunday, fun day. This is for all the marbles right here, man. The Boston-Brooklyn matchups. So the one thing I don't like to do is go off of the regular season. And everybody's talking about, oh man, Boston kicked their ass in the regular season, they beat them. Well, Brooklyn knows that, right? The kind of team Brooklyn has, especially with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving being your head of the snakes of your team, they're champions, And you don't want to ever piss a dog off, or you don't ever want to wake the dog up, but the dog is woke. And I think they're hearing all the murmurings. I think they're hearing all the whispers. I think they're hearing everything. And I think they're motivated. It's a great test for, Tatum and Jay Brown and all those guys to grow up now. Marcus Smart, all those guys. They're going to be without Rob. They got a cast that can come in there and play together, man. I like the Celtics. It is going to be a dogfight. I think this series goes 7 games, and it'll be about the maturity of Jason Tatum and Jay Brown in this whole matchup. KD's going to have to guard one of them. And in return, one of them is going to have to guard KD. So, it's going to be like growing up. The keys to Brooklyn are just KD and Kyrie's effectiveness and their supporting cast. We kind of got a notion of what those two, or got an idea of what those two are going to bring, what the supporting cast is going to be, In the playoffs, I look for Brooklyn to be a totally different team. And I hear they said it might be a Ben Simmons sighting. I don't know. If I got to pick a winner, I'm going to pick the C's. I'm going with the C's over the Brooklyn Nets. And those are my Eastern Conference matchups. And now the West Side. Phoenix playing the Pelicans. Styles makes matchups. And when it just comes down to it, I think Phoenix is locked in, and they are on a mission. I think everything they've done since losing in the finals has been predicated and kind of culminated for this moment right here. I think they've been waiting for their chance to kind of get back at the playoffs. They have something to prove. When I watched them play, they look like they're on a mission. When I watch Chris Paul play, when I watch D-Book play, when I'm watching these guys play, it's almost like they're predicating, setting themselves up for this moment right here. I think their run is going to be predicated off of the health of Chris Paul and how he goes. At the end of the day, the Pelicans don't have enough to beat the Suns. And in that matchup with the Suns versus the Pelicans, I'm gonna pick the Suns. Utah at Dallas. First off, no player in the playoffs is 100%. Luka might be out, Luka might play. So shout to all the players who grinding through. With that said, if Dallas doesn't have Luka, which is almost Dallas's everything, it's gonna be really tough to beat a full-throttle Utah team who's been together for a while. They know who they are. They have an identity. They play both ends. They're a very physical team. If Dallas doesn't have Luka, I don't know if they can beat Utah in a 7-game series. If Luka plays, and I think he will, and I think he'll try, he's gonna have to be very aggressive in getting a lot of guys opportunities, but also, imposing his will on the game as much as he can. But I don't know if Dallas has enough to beat a full-throttle Utah Jazz, but, what do I know? Let's see. That's the dope thing about the playoffs, right? But in this sense, I got the Utah Jazz beating the Dallas Mavericks. Golden State, Denver. I heard that Steph actually went through warm-ups this morning, and I heard nothing but good things about his involvement in coming back, so I anticipate him being available to play. They're locked into a mission. I think we keep forgetting about their pedigree and who they are. And, you know, around this time, this is when you want to actually get out here and start to prove everybody wrong. I'm sure they're not shut down the outside white noise. Now, saying all that, you're playing a very gritty Denver team, headed by Djokovic, who probably will win MVP. If Denver's going to beat or have a chance in this, he's going to have to impose his will and dominate. And then it'll be about the supporting cast. Can those guys help Joker? Can those guys hit big shots when he's double teamed, triple teamed? In the end result, I got the Golden State Warriors beating the Denver Nuggets. It's Minnesota, Memphis Grizzlies. Woo-hoo. First off, shout to Minnie, man. That was a passionate-ass game. You know, I had a bunch of my friends and stuff calling me. They're going to carry that momentum into Memphis. John Morant is probably one of the more confident players in our game offensively, and has seen so many different types of defenses since he's been a young kid, right? Well, Patrick Bev is probably one of the more spirited, confident defenders. I love the kid Brooks. I love Jackson Jr. A lot of people don't talk about Steven Adams and how he actually holds the paint down and how he's just a solid 5 in the league. Karl Anthony Towns is going to have to find ways to score the ball. D. Russell, we forget about him hitting big shots, but I like Minnesota's chances. I just don't know if they have the expertise in 7 games to beat the Grizzlies. And that completes the playoffs. Enjoy it, y'all.
So today, we're at the league office. Back in the day when you came here, it was like going to the principal's office. But today, it's not so much that. We're getting a one-on-one at Adam Silver today. So yeah, this is certified. On KG certified. You did.
Adam! How you doing, man?
Great, yourself?
I always wonder your days and how you get the time to do anything.
Oh, man.
Thank you for doing this, man.
Of course.
I appreciate it, man. I know I just saw, I'm not one of these internet people. I'm not on my phone all the time, but today I see you've been through like a array of press a little bit, right?
Yeah, well, we had our board meeting yesterday, so I had media after yesterday.
You ever get a break?
It's the good and bad of a job like this, that it's always games on,
Yeah.
and then the WNBA comes, and we're doing stuff internationally. But I think my sort of break, a lot of it's what people do when they're on breaks, right? Get to go to games, do stuff.
Right. I often wonder, do you ever get to turn off? You ever get to turn off?
No. It's tough. It's just, when the stuff always happening. And I'm sure I could if I needed to, but it's just not my nature. There's always stuff happening in this league.
Always, man.
Yeah.
I want to ask you this right off the top, man. What do you do for fitness? I always see you are always in impeccable shape. You know how you get that little pop belly? You know what I'm talking about too, right? When you turn 40-something, right? You always look like you're in great shape, man. What do you do for workouts?
Well, it begins with stress. It burns a lot of calories.
Are you serious?
That's a key part of my workout.
My God.
But I'm a runner. I always have been.
Oh, okay.
I live uptown, New York City, up the street from here.
Okay.
I live near Central Park. When it's nice, I try to get out in the park. When it's cold, I'm off in a gym or on a treadmill. Try to walk a fair amount. That's one thing about New York City. It's a walker's town.
It is.
Usually because of traffic, it's often faster to walk. So, and I'm a pretty active person. I'm just moving around, even in our offices. I'm moving around a lot during the day.
Love it.
My Apple Watch tells me, which I'm not wearing right now. Sorry, Tim Cook, but tells me when to stand. So it's but just by I'm not so much a routine guy. It's not like 6:45 every morning, this whatever. But I just try to find time for it.
I love it. I always thought that whenever I saw you in Cleveland. 75 was dope. It was great to be around the ambiance and just.
By the way, look at you. So, okay, I'm a little older, but man, you look like you could still be on the court.
Listen, the way not only how the salaries are going, but how I'm seeing 10 days and how I'm seeing guys come back or talk about. I'm seeing LeBron look like he's ageless. Are you in awe of what he's doing at that age?
Oh, absolutely. Chris Paul, LeBron, so many of the older guys now. But they treat, their bodies differently than guys did when they came in the league. Yeah. I won't mention any brands, but we used to be promoting fast food, in essence, as fuel for players.
Yeah.
And there's food for different times and different occasions, but now what's in vogue, guys are, it's not just whether personal chefs but teams, they're monitoring every gram of fat that goes in a guy's body. And for particularly top players, extending a career a few years has enormous value, enormous interest to fans too. It's a game changer.
Everything. It's not only a game changer, but I'm watching how we as society are getting healthier, right? And I'm watching sports, because, the theory has always been to put on so that you can get beat up to take the longer hits. But I'm watching how vegan has come into our lifestyles. Are you seeing that whole wave come into our sport, in sports general, not just basketball?
No question. Again, when I think back my early days in the league, when we would do clinics around the NBA, it was largely about basketball skills, as you know. It was, your elbows here for shooting, et cetera, and defense is this way. And now at an NBA clinic, it's largely about fitness, which in a way it's broadened it to a larger community. I mean, in addition to now everything we do is boys and girls, that there's of course fundamental basketball skills, but it's fitness, nutrition, stress management. As you know, that's been a huge change in the league, where certainly it's not as if, mental issues, stress, sexual anxiety, depression weren't issues when you played or a generation before you. But certainly guys didn't talk about it in the same way. And then when DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Love became public about it, it made it more acceptable. And that's now trickled down to our youth programs. And maybe people don't label it the same way, but you have in our youth program, it's like, all right, how many have trouble sleeping?
Right.
How many of you, feel your heart's pounding out of control when you're, when you come into the game, or you have a free throw. And I think the ability to talk about those things, label them, guys learning about controlling their breath, mindfulness, that's all part of the league now. And it's been a fantastic change.
It's crazy. I came into the league and I brought with me yoga, I brought me vibration, I brought cupping, I brought the hyperbaric chamber, I brought
which no one else was doing at the time.
No one. And when we actually had kinesio tape, the league was fining us because you could see it, and the league hadn't had that partnership and hadn't actually, So, it's funny that when I sit with people like Ed Lissert and Tim from New Jersey, the old trainers, we talk about some of the old ways and how we used to get in trouble for the stuff that they're doing now. It's just remarkable to see.
Lights, the energy.
Playoffs, yes, let's get it.
Here, every game counts.
Every bucket counts.
Yeah.
Every second counts.
Yes.
Oh, I love this game.
It's NBA playoff time.
Can you dig it?
Trophies.
Did you enjoy Cleveland?
I did, and you and I had a chance to talk then.
Fun time,
and
man.
I think for people, it was wonderful to see the guys on the floor at halftime, but some of the great moments were pregame when all of you were in a room and greeting each other, pictures were taken, hugs and everything else. I mean, that's why we're in this business. And those were lifetime memories, putting aside from me just getting to watch it, but you could tell for the multiple generations of players in the room, I mean, to be in that select club of the 75 greatest, and for those, some we've lost, obviously. Vast majority of guys were there. There's some COVID concerns, some issues, some guys couldn't come, but it was remarkable. And it was so special. I remember when Dennis Rodman walked in.
Listen.
I'll say one thing about, I thought when Chris Paul, who just stepped down as the president of the Players Association, he took a mic. I mean, it wasn't planned, but just on behalf of the current players who are in that room, and for him to say, we stand on the shoulders of the guys who came before us. I know in looking at some of the older players in the room, you and I know it may seem corny, whatever, to people aren't part of this league, but it's meaningful to hear that, even for the greatest of all time, that maybe didn't certainly make the kind of money or same kind of global fame or recognition, or maybe aren't so well known by players today, but when you're hearing it from today's great, that is so meaningful.
Another level of appreciation, because we all got to have a path. It's always great to know who's came before you. I love that part. I was watching you throughout the whole, the weekend. And I watched from Quavo to 2 Chainz to politicians, to players, to ex-players, to current players, and I was watching you just work the room, just so transparent. Where's that come from? I know Commissioner Stern, rest in peace, was not like that. Your transparency is radiant. Like, I watched you walk in the room and it was dull, and I'm watching you in this, like, I don't want to say trees and shit was growing at them, but you gave your life, man. Where's that come from, man?
I have to say, I don't really think all that much about it. I think in part because it's just who I am. I think there's an authenticity we all bring to our positions. I don't think those kinds of encounters are something where you can write a manual for it. I think just like you, I really like people. And I think, again, I'm pinching myself, realizing how fortunate I am, particularly in that setting, because it's one of the things that makes the NBA so special and unique. It's this confluence of people. To your point, there are stars from the world of hip hop, other generations of music, you know, from culinary world, political leaders, athletes from other sports, just regular folk. And I think that to the extent that I've been given this opportunity, not because of any particular skill of my own, but sort of given this title, given this opportunity, to the extent that I, as a representative of the league, can work the room, so to speak. The room happened to be an arena, and move around and just show appreciation for being there. But also, I will just say from my part, it's genuine. I enjoy it. I like the people. And there's so much that's divisive, obviously, these days. And recognizing sometimes the NBA adds to that divisiveness in times when we take positions on things. But at the end of the day, the game on the floor is incredibly unifying, that love, that passion behind basketball. And when all those different people can come together and we can be the conveners of it as the NBA for All-Star, on top of that, to have the 75 greatest there. By the way, Michael Jordan, truth be told, I think it wasn't always clear he was going to be able to make it. He's a NASCAR team owner.
That was classic for him to come
Daytona, and, you know, his team came in second. If they had won, I'm not sure how he would have made it, but he made it, and he was there. And you saw that smile. He couldn't take it off his face.
From all of us.
And then it wasn't, in case people are wondering, yeah, the cameras were rolling when he was out in the court, but then third quarter started behind the scenes. And as he said, when he was with the fellas, and, you know, for Michael or you or Magic or any of the greats from this league, everybody's busy. They're all over the place. There aren't that many opportunities. And there's things that, and I'm an observer here, but where you guys who have been champions, who have been the greatest ever at what you do, there's only some things, and I think sometimes it's just a look or a few words that where you're all in rare air and you can share things with each other. And part of it is, it's not always so easy. And maybe you can let your guard down in a way that maybe a person on the outside doesn't want to hear how tough it is, or that you can't sleep, or you have your own anxieties, but that among that group of guys, and I think that's what made that back room so special, is people saying, like, we're all in this together, and isn't this so special? And when you get a little older, put some context on it as well.
And then, too, all the people that helped us along the way, the Leo Wilcox, the Russ Grandis, the Rob Thorns, the Chris Chin, like, all of them was there. And it's just, you know, especially now, day and time where we at, it was good to see everybody get there. I was going to talk about the transparency. Has it helped, it's obviously helped you with players and communications?
Transparency helps a lot because you don't have to remember some other story other than the truth. Right? You know, it gets hard when you're not transparent, because, like, what did I tell that group? What did I tell that group? I mean, certain things, like when we sit with the Players Association, when we're negotiating, we agree that we're going to keep certain things behind closed doors, but we don't go out and tell a different story.
I love that.
And I think part of transparency these days, I've recognized, as I talking about earlier, maybe divisiveness that we add to sometimes, that not everyone's going to agree with everything we do. Some people didn't agree with the positions we took around social justice when we were in the bubble. Some people didn't agree when guys were kneeling when the anthem was playing, or Black Lives Matter, or whatever it is. But I think to the extent that we're very open about why we do what we do, share our own doubts in some cases with positions we've taken, acknowledging the complexity of the world, not suggesting that anything's ever black and white. I think that way, when people come along with you and say, all right, they considered this, they considered that, that ultimately they decided they were going to make this decision and I disagree with it. But often what I'll hear from people is, all right, I respect the process you went through, and it's okay to disagree. And I think that's part of it. My biggest pushback on fans sometimes or our critics is that part of the greatest thing in the world about this country is this notion that we do have free expression, particularly around political issues, social issues, and we should be willing to listen to each other, and even if we disagree, respectfully disagree. And as opposed to, oh, you guys have taken that position, I'm never gonna watch your games again, or I'm never gonna support that player again. And recognizing that, and I'm sure you've gone through this, the journey that our players go through. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, our key employees, our players, are young people. And I look at the world very differently at this point in my life than I did when I was in my 20s or my 30s. I'm sure you do in certain ways as well. So, you know, to go on that journey with people and say, all right, and maybe I used to see things a little differently and I am willing to listen and potentially even change my mind about something.
I think that's the world we live in. I think other people can learn from this younger generation and vice versa. And I think that's how you get true, not just transparency, but true solution to some of these issues we have. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I mean, and listening is a skill. And I've learned that in this job as well, because a lot of people say it, but to be able to really take in what someone's saying and to realize that you don't even necessarily have to have a response. I think that's what I think when you're younger, you think, oh, what do I say when they say that? And sometimes you just say, you know, like, you know, let me try to understand that. Let me try to walk in your shoes. And you don't have to necessarily have a comeback. It's just like, okay, I'm listening to you. And that there may be a quiet moment where you don't fill that space. And I think that's a lot of cases with when you look at within this league, you often have our team owners are coming from a different place than the players, or even older generations of players coming from a different place than younger players. And sometimes it's like, all right, let's just all listen to each other.
It's all changing.
And that's one of the great things about this league too, is that to me, you know, just back to that opportunity in Cleveland, I think in this league, we really celebrate the players who came before these generations. And you see it, I mean, look what we're doing together right now, you being around the game in your own way. You know, Michael, one extreme in the spectrum, owns a team, but then you have now most recently Dwayne Wade join the ownership group in Utah, Grant Hill, like David Robinson, there's others, but then look how many guys are coaching, general managers, work within the league. James Jones, I'm so proud of him now, recently off the floor in Phoenix. I think that's what makes this feel really special as an institution.
And the women, a great segue. I was going to, in one of my questions here, I'm seeing more women become CEOs and becoming CEOs of some major corporations. And, you know, women are now assistant coaches on our bench, which is something that I never thought I would see in my lifetime, but definitely possible. How far are we from seeing women and minorities in more some of the major stakes in some of the franchises?
I think we're seeing it. I mean, we talked in terms of African-American players, certainly we're seeing
growing.
We have now, I think of, you know, Gail Benson, you know, as the principal governor, owner in New Orleans, Jody Allen, Paul Allen's sister in Portland. I mean, there's other situations. I think it's something that we have to keep talking about and promoting. You know, I've said this before, I can't wait to see a woman as a head coach in this league.
Oh man, that's gonna be crazy.
It's gonna happen. I mean, you know, it wasn't that many years ago where we only had one woman officiating floor. I mean, there's areas when you look where there's just been, I'll call them cultural barriers where in terms of officiating the game or coaching, it obviously shouldn't matter. You know, that if you know the game, you can lead people, you can communicate with people. Same thing we've seen in business. And I've said before too, for all the progressive positions that sports leagues historically have taken, not just the NBA, I'll just speak for our league now, we fell behind when it came particularly to coaching and officiating, because you could step back and say,
you think so?
I only think because why shouldn't you have a head coach who's a woman? Why ultimately shouldn't it be 50-50 in terms of officials? So we have a ways to go there. But I've also learned that the way to make progress, it also has to be, my view, authentic. Nobody wants to get the job because, you know, it's some sort of quota system. But you have to talk about it, promote it. One of the things we do, for example, in the coaching ranks, working with our Coaches Association, which, you know, I give Rick Carlisle a lot of credit as head of the association. He said, let's create a database. So if you're a team and you're looking for an assistant or a head coach, you know, there may be names, so it's not just the old boys network. There may be names that you're not aware of. There may be former players who are trying to get into coaching. There may be college coaches who are interested in coaching in the NBA. So here's this database, you know, to help you create that pool of candidates to interview. I mean, so it's not just who do I know and who I'm gonna call. I mean, those kinds of things really matter. And we're doing the same thing in terms of executive jobs at our teams. I think there's also, on the ownership ranks, we've changed some of the financial parameters around team ownership recently. You can, you know, there's private equity funds, for example, now that are allowed to invest in ways that you couldn't historically. So, well, it's still, there's no way getting around. You have to be very wealthy to own an NBA team. But to the extent that you personally don't have to put in as much money, especially when you have multi-billion-dollar franchises, that broadens the pool of people in a position to buy a team. So all of those things matter.
It's crazy that you say this. I don't have a card or none of that. This is all on my head, and it seems like you're reading from my list. I was going to ask you, how important is data? What's the value of data these days?
I think it's critically important in every area, and it drives me a little crazy just in terms of players when you hear those debates about, you know, analytics versus judgment. To me, all of those things matter. And if I were
going to pot, right?
Running a team, if I were a scout, of course I would want to see a player with my own eyes. But I would also want to see as much data as anybody has on that player. And I think the advanced analytics now that we use in the league, where you're looking at different permutations of players on the floor, different combinations, I think you know different. You'd say, give me the information. I trust my own eyes, but I also want to see the data. And I find it's no different in business. I think sometimes when people are presenting business plans, it's as if it's preordained. Well, it says it in the plan, and here's my 3-year projection, here's my 5-year projection, but I know you've invested in a lot of businesses, and if it only were that easy, that, oh, the business plan says 12 times return on there, whatever else. Right? But at the same time, it's hard to imagine you'd invest and say, you would still want to see a business plan, you'd want to see the numbers. And I think, but then you'd want to sit with the founder, you'd want to sit with the operators and get a sense of them. And I think, and it's partly, I think, you know, particularly in our office, for some of our younger people who've been out of the office for a large part of the last 2 years. I mean, people were all back here now, but the conversation I have often with people is, well, can I just live wherever and do my job, you know, by Zoom? And aspects, yes. I think we've learned during the pandemic, maybe I'm not going to fly across the country as much as I used to for an hour meeting or whatever else. But even you and I sitting like this, I mean, we did some interviews and discussions during Zoom. It's not the same. Like you feel people.
In person.
You really do. And I think that in building relationships, it's critically important that at the same time that we have this personal sort of connection with each other. And, you know, back to what we were saying about the 75 greatest, a lot of it was physical.
Yeah, it was.
Right? It was like people.
That's what made it passionate too, man.
People was like, you know, it was like, I was watching even after the fact some of the video of Michael Jordan when I was on the floor, and it was interesting how many guys he was just like, you know, it was like, he was just like touch, the hug. You know, and like, you could see it, you know, and you can't, it's real.
It's almost like we needed that too, you know, coming back to some normalcy or what we all wanted to be able to touch, and it was a great moment.
Incidentally, it's what makes this sport so great too, because on one hand, you know, you need Hall of Fame individuals like yourself to win championships, but it's also that special chemistry of a group of players coming together. And that's also where analytics can't necessarily help you as much as maybe in an individual sport where, all right, but how are they going to react to each other? What's it going to be like in the locker room? You know, how are they going to relate to each other? And there is no formula. There's no algorithm for that yet, at least.
When I'm watching today's game, I feel like I'm downloading the latest play. And what I mean by that is, you know, obviously we can go through each age and see the game and the style of how it's played. When I watch now, you know, points are like 144, I think I saw the other night, and 125, and I remember being in some All-Star games where I think we scored maybe 144, 140. Like, is the high scoring working? Is speeding the game up? I asked this with a follow-up because I want to know, will there ever be a time in our lives where the hand check comes back? Is that going? Is this kind of the wave in which we're going now?
I'll answer it coming from the fan in me, which is, and maybe data comes into play here because I can look at television ratings and other measures of interest. There was a point, I believe, probably in around the late 90s when the game became too physical. And I think we lost some of
For our viewers, you mean?
Yeah, and I think for our fans, from the aesthetic enjoyment of the game, where it de-emphasized the particular skill a player had and maybe weighted too heavily physicality, where a big, strong player could come in and prevent a incredibly skilled player from doing those kinds of things. I think of, not that he's a small guy, but a smaller player like Steph Curry can do on the floor. I think that when you think of some of his ability to shoot, his ability to move through the paint, that if guys could just bang him and knock him to the ground, as that was once the case in the league, I don't think that would be a better brand of basketball. I also think we have to find the right balance, because I know when I sit in the stands or talk to friends sometime, they want to bring back, and we've tried to bring back a little bit more of the physicality. Like, I think people like to see hard defense. I mean, it goes a little bit before to what you and I are talking about, like touch and feel. Like, I don't think either people like that idea that guys can go through unscathed and like you're protecting your star players. And in fact, we made some changes this season where sort of, I don't know, the unnatural basketball moves, you know what I'm referring to, and where those were being players were gaming the system in a way, and brilliant players playing by the rules had found ways where those were becoming defensive fouls. So we reset this year, which is something you got to do in the offseason. You don't want to change mid-course, but we made it clear, those players, that that's no longer going to be a foul. And of course, because they're the greatest players, they adjust and they find other ways to score. So I like where we're going in terms of that brand of basketball. In terms of scoring for its own sake, I don't necessarily think what fans tune into is just to see scoring for its own sake, because that's where I think people want to see real defense. To me, it goes more to the pace of the game. Like, I don't think people like a lot of stoppages. Like, and also, data tells a story there. For example, in Nielsen ratings, they're minute by minute. You can tell when people are tuning out, and when games are being streamed, it's second by second. You know exactly when people are losing interest in your game. And so, as I know you know, we pulled back on the amount of replays this season. Fewer opportunities for the referees to go to the monitors. Because even in talking to players, like nobody, especially in a game where there's as much scoring as ours and there's much opportunities, frankly, to make up for a bad call. Most players I talk to, if it's a game-deciding play and it's the guy's foot on the line or not, you want to know that. On the other hand, if it's a bad call, I mean, there are bad calls and it's in the third quarter. Do guys want to stop and wait for 2.5 minutes while the guy goes to the monitor? Because you could easily, people have said to me, well, with technology these days, you should be able to get every call right. And I said, we could. The game would be 5 hours long, but we could. So what's the right balance? And it's something we're constantly tweaking. Like, by way of example, folks in our office now are working on technology. I know you're a tennis fan, where in Hawkeye, I think what they call it, seeing you at the US Open. And there used to be line judges. Now it's just beep. You don't even need a person sitting there anymore. And the ball is inbounds or out of bounds or on the line, and the tennis ball. And I think now you can imagine sort of where a system in the NBA where sort of this is the out of bounds line. There are multiple hands. There's a ball. Out. White. Play. It's instantaneous. You don't have to look at replay. Now, it's not as easy to do that with many different hands moving than it is a tennis ball on the line. But we'll get that. And that's what we're working on right now. And I think if you can get that right through technology, there's no stopping. It's essentially instantaneous. It's going. There'll be some kind of animated replay that shows that was, LeBron's hand, whatever else.
To build it up,
And And that'll make things faster and more accurate. So to the extent we can do things through technology, we will do them. But at the end of the day, again, you know far better than I, there's a lot of judgment in terms of physical contact on the floor. And I don't know how we're going to replace that. And guys are occasionally going to make mistakes as well. But, using technology, we can improve, just so player performance is improved. We have people working on improving the performance of officials.
I think the scoring actually helps. Makes me watch. I enjoy watching. I love the new moves. I love the new style.
But I assume you want to see defense.
Playoff time.
Yeah.
For 75 seasons and counting.
Showing out in the playoffs. They're back! Yes, let's get it!
This is where you go big or go home.
Here we go from 82 games to 16 wins.
Yeah.
Here you go from the highlight to the spotlight.
From underrated to undeniable.
We're talking playoffs. Are you ready?
You know I was born ready. Come on.
Can you dig it?
Trophies. Trophies.
It's the NBA playoffs, where greats arrive every year. But it's not about getting here, you gotta make it here. Making it means getting the W, when everybody leaves it out on the floor. Making it means winning it all, to become part of basketball history. Making it here is the difference between making it or breaking a legacy. So make sure you see every second of the NBA playoffs. It's all action, baby. Visit NBA.com/75 to learn more. Visit NBA.com/playoffs for schedules. Peace! I say this in fairness, when I watch, because I watch the whole season. I watch preseason because I want to see how guys looking in shape. And then I want to watch the season of flow and how guys are durable and all this. And then when it gets to playoffs, everything gets,
Right. It's a different game. There's no question.
It is. So I'm downloading that. About my show is I like to teach. So, that's another conversation I want to talk to you about. But I say this to tee up the playing games, bringing excitement to, or another level of excitement. Me and my assistant was just in the back room, in the war room y'all got back here that looked like the war room or something. But we was talking about how we're excited about the play-in and who's in the play-in. There's only 2 spots, and I'm an ex-player, and I'm excited. Talk about some of the other innovative ideas, just like the play-in. And I know the players probably don't like it because there's more games, there's one more thing they got to do, right? But talk about the idea, at least, of some of these unique opportunities with playing games and things that follow suit.
Initially, a lot of the players were against the play-in tournament. What's interesting, and it surprised me a bit, the players ultimately, at least the ones at the on the executive committee of the union that we're initially talking to,
push back
because they were traditionalists in a way that many of our team GMs and other executives weren't, which surprised me a little bit. You might have thought it would have been the opposite, just given their age and everything else. But they're like, no, the playoffs should be determined by the teams with the top 8 records in each conference. I think as we talked more about it, and as you know, a change like that requires approval of the Players Association, so it's done in partnership. And back to data, we started to present some information about why those games would be attractive to fans. And even beyond, I have to admit, this goes to best laid plans, that we didn't predict how much additional interest would be generated in the last month of the season.
Wow.
Because you have teams that want to lock in the 6th or better positions, so they're not in the play-in at all and don't risk anything. But then you have teams jockeying for position right up really to the last week of the season to become one of those now top 20 teams to ensure they're the play-in. And it also, we were hoping this would be the case, that you have teams where, let's say there's an injury to a key player early in the season, where now that player, it might have been before the play-in, come February or March, I might as well, at this point, we might as well rebuild as a team. What's the difference if we win, 8 more games or whatever else? But now a team can look and say, hey, we can make a move here. And then if we have our full complement of players come April, we'll be right there. And then we just got to win 4 series.
It's momentum.
It's
momentum at that point.
That's been very effective. And I think that because the play-in seems to be working so far, it's given us permission to talk about some other innovative ideas.
Okay.
One of them we're talking about right now is an in-season tournament. And I would say they're taking a page from European soccer. They have, club competitions.
Like Champions League.
Champions League, exactly, where you have clubs from other leagues playing each other, but even within a league, you have separate cups, sometimes multiple cups. Now, what we're trying to do here is we don't want to take anything away from the Larry O'Brien Trophy. You know, you have one, that's what it's all about at the end of the day, winning a championship. But we don't see any reason why there can't be something else you play for as well. And so we're experimenting with this notion that in season, maybe there are some games that count for cup competition, but are also count for regular season standings. And then you get down to maybe the final 8 teams, and then they play a single elimination tournament. And talk about innovation. You know, in the All-Star game the last few years, it was Chris Paul's idea. We've been using that so-called Elam ending, where there's a target score in order to win. Like, maybe we'll change up these games a little bit and use a target score. What draws fans in particular, I mean, there are passionate fans like yourself who want to see preseason, want to see regular season. They're looking for different things at all times. But then there's a casual fan that wants a game of consequence. And take college basketball. No doubt there are a lot of fans who aren't paying that much attention to college regular season. Come the tournament, they're all in. Another group of fans, Final Four, I'm in. Oh, it's the championship game Monday night. Everybody in. Yeah, they could play the song at the end. Now I'm a big fan. Yeah, so now I think here, to me, new traditions aren't created overnight, because some people said to me, well, who's going to care? Who wins that? I said, okay, well, that's not going to happen maybe the first time around. You know, will there be incentives to win? Sure. It's a business. You know, there could be financial incentives too.
And a cup at the end of the day. You win the trophy.
And I think that not a substitute for winning the Larry O'Brien Trophy, but I'll call it the Stern Cup after David Stern, for example. I'd love to find a way other ways to honor him, but let's say it were the Stern Cup. I think we could create a new tradition that could be really special in this league. 10 years from now, if we were having this conversation, maybe there will be multiple cups. I mean, the competition for people's time is so different than it used to be, because certainly, obviously, I'm older than you. When I was a kid, it was just really the advent of cable when I was in high school. But before then, you only had 5 channels or so. Then cable came, but initially cable maybe had 30 channels. And now it's unlimited. There's thousands of cable channels, but you don't even think that way. It's streaming where it's just endless, right? You have so many different choices that the competition's different. So there's certainly a group of fans. If you're a fan of Boston Celtics, you're a fan of Minnesota Timberwolves, you can't get enough. But then we have to recognize a casual fan that wants to know there's something more at stake. And that's, again, where I think these cup competitions come in.
In Champions League, I see a bunch of EPL, Spanish, and Korean, all the different leagues, right?
Right.
And what I love about Champions League, someone from Spanish League can play someone in the EPL.
Right.
Now, in this ideal, are you thinking about competing against this? I know that China has a league. I know
Spain has a league. Italy has a league. Greece has a league. Yeah.
So you're talking about actually going against?
We've done things like that in preseason. Maybe one day. I know. Yao Ming is my counterpart in China.
Shout out to Yao Ming.
He's in essence the commissioner of their league, and they're still in a developmental phase there in terms of the quality of the competition. But I remember in 2008 when U.S. played China. I think that's still the most watched basketball game in the history of the world.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, when you think of the population of China, the amount of interest there was in the United States and around the world. And if one day there was a more vibrant league in China and the top team in the U.S., the NBA champion, we're playing the top team in China. Now, that's a ways off, but you could imagine also as basketball, we're number 2 sport in the world after soccer. As more basketball is being played, that other leagues emerge, higher level of competition.
Love it.
I have no doubt there'd be enormous interest in a competition like that, because it's why there's so much interest in World Cups and Olympic competition, that, when you're an American and your team's playing, and remember in the old days when we were playing the Soviet Union, can only imagine now with all that's going on in the world, competitions against other countries. And I'm still a big believer that particularly when there's tensions between countries, among countries, that you still need these opportunities, to make human connections. So, with people, and maybe that can come through sports, on the pitch, on the field, on the court, etc.
And sports brings people together, believe it or not.
Yeah. Oh, that's been, and you and I have been around the world together.
Sir.
That's definitely been my experience.
How has streaming changed the business of how we watch, not just basketball, but how we watch almost everything And will it be reflected in the next owner's television deal, do you think?
There's no doubt it will be, because what streaming enables us to do now is have on-demand watching on any device, right? So, I mean, for me now, there are a lot of games historically I would have missed, but if I have my phone in my pocket, and even, you know, sometimes it's below the table at dinner or whatever else, but it wasn't that long ago, to me at least, maybe time flies, where the quality of video would buffer and it wasn't that great, it wasn't high definition. Now you never even think about that. Wow. It's essentially perfect. And we have a streaming product, it's League Pass, where you can get any game out of market. So we're here in New York now. If you're a Knicks fan but you don't live in New York, and where in New York the way the system now works, you would watch, if it's not a national game, on MSG, the local network. But if you were anywhere else in the country or in the world, you can watch every Knicks game, or every Warriors game, or every Celtics game, you name it. And what we're seeing now in streaming, the technology allows for more options than traditional cable or satellite. And you're seeing now the gamification of sports. In some cases, it may be fantasy. It may be you just want to see all the data as you're watching a game. You want to know precisely how many points, rebounds, et cetera, a player, or exact positions on the floor they're shooting from. But sports betting.
I swear, I think you're reading up.
I keep thinking, because you don't have a list that there's over my shoulder, you're reading off a cue card.
I'm looking like this.
There's nothing
I think he was under my bed last night or something. You heard my rehearsal on this?
You got it all in your head. It's impressive.
No, but it's conversation too, man. These are things that I'm curious about, and you know, viewers and stuff like that. I want to ask you, right in line, why is betting working now?
It's working. It's something we knew all along. I mean, it was
15 years ago.
Not so long ago, right?
15 years ago, we frowned upon
15 years, you know, you could go back, 6 years, whenever the law changed in the US. We knew in Las Vegas, certainly, and from huge amount of illegal betting, that people like to bet on sports. There's no question about it. One of the things I learned in my earlier days at the NBA, when I used to be in charge of the NBA entertainment side of our business, we called it NBA Entertainment, where we'd sell our programming internationally. You'd go to Europe, for example, think about London, even pre-internet, there used to be betting parlors. Like, all over the city. And you could go in, and for people who've been to, a horse track, think of the betting windows there, and you'd go in and there's a tout board and there'd be odds, and you could bet on the competitions, completely legal. Then that action moved to the internet in Europe, but it was still illegal in the United States. And so what we started to see was this huge offshore business where before it was legal in the US, and there was a Supreme Court ruling that changed the law, you could still put in Bet NBA, and there were unlimited numbers of sites. You could still put your credit card in. I'm not even quite sure if that was technically legal or illegal, or it was just a gray area of the law, but it existed. And, lots of people were betting that way, or they were betting the old-fashioned, purely illegal way with a bookie, where you meet at the corner, or you go to a bar and you have a betting sheet or whatever else. And so shortly after I became commissioner, based on understanding what was happening in Vegas and our experience outside the United States, I took the position that we should legalize this, make it transparent. And the other thing, with the advent of all this technology, these betting companies don't want to deal in cash. They want to deal with credit cards where they know exactly who you are, they can track you, and if there's unusual betting activity, they can monitor it, they can deal with the league. In a way, I analogize it to a stock exchange. And on a stock exchange, if there's aberrant behavior, if all of a sudden there's all kinds of additional action around a particular stock, buying or selling, flags go off. Their computer suggests there might be something happening here. And if it so turned out that the next day a takeover or something was announced, they would know to look back and start interviewing people and say, why all this activity on this stock the day before a major announcement was made around the company? And so same thing we can do in sports betting. We can track when there's unusual behavior. And also, if an individual, you can set limits, betting companies, on how much an individual bets. If an individual is doing things that seem aberrant or inconsistent with prior behavior, the computer will tell the betting companies those things too. And I feel it's important when we talk about sports betting to recognize, and I think of Uncut Gems, obviously the movie you starred in, where the main character had a gambling issue.
Yeah.
That there's no doubt that there are problem gamblers. And it's something that we have to take incredibly seriously. Now, my position is, if we're all underground and illegal, we'd have less ability to deal with it than if it were legal. But having said that, it's not as if we were given a choice over whether sports betting is legal in the United States. I did advocate for it, but state by state, they've passed bills legalizing sports betting. That's the reality that we have to deal with. I think it's better than having it all underground, but it's something that we and the regulators have to take very seriously to look for people who, and it's a small percent, but people who might do things that cause real problems for themselves and their families.
And I think all the betting outlets need to take one position of responsibility and service those people who probably need it, because that's a real thing. A couple more questions and I'll let you go. I know you're busy. I wanted to ask you about one of the things I loved when I played, Adam, I loved to start the game was I used to go to the back of the goal post and I used to bang my head and I used to call that hard hat time. Put your hard hat on, let's go to work. And now when I watch games, I naturally look at the back of the thing. It says Coinbase on the back, and on the sides of the thing it says Coinbase. Talk about how digital currency is changing not just business, but or the effects of it in sports.
Certainly. I mean, one, you're seeing Coinbase, other cryptocurrency, digital currency companies using the NBA as a platform to promote those brands. I mean, it's one place that people come. We have a particularly young audience, a lot of, I think we're association with this league, with innovation, diversity, new ideas. And I think so, I'd begin there. It's like, okay, I'm sure there are a lot of people who will watch our game, who's listening to this interview, may not be all that familiar with digital currencies or cryptocurrencies and want to better understand it. So it starts there. Now, for our business in particular, I think blockchain, the technology that underlies those digital currencies, I think it opens up enormous opportunities for leagues. And think about the traditional trading card business, for example.
I was going to say Pop Shop is...
Yeah, NBA Top Shot.
Excuse me.
Right, yeah. So you there where it's in essence, a trading card that's become a digital product that's moved online. The old regime was a trading card company. Panini is our main licensee, or Topps is one well-known in the marketplace.
Get a piece of bubble gum in it.
You have a card. Let's say you buy that card for a few dollars. That card turns out to be valuable. It's a Kevin Garnett card. That card then trades for $20, then trades for $100, in some cases for thousands of dollars. None of those proceeds are shared with the league, with you, team, or anybody else. It's now just the trader's market. What's so amazing about blockchain, it's usually there's an attachment forever to the creator of that content. And so it doesn't mean there isn't a market to trade that card, but it means you can set your own rules. And so maybe the creator of that content, the player who's the subject of that card, is a partner forever. And if somehow that card becomes worth $100,000 or whatever it is, or more, you're still partners forever in that. And so then I start to think about tickets. Just like if you look back the old days of illegal sports betting, it used to be scalping. You hardly ever hear that term anymore. But, big game of yours, I'm sure you're driving up the game, you see guys out there, need tickets, got to, whatever else. And that's a transaction, it's cash. And the team has sold that ticket to that person. Ultimately, it's sold. Putting aside not sharing in the proceeds, they have no idea who's even sitting in their arena. But so blockchain comes in, and you could think, everybody talks about NFTs, and that's what Top Shot cards are, that every ticket can be an NFT. So 19,000 people come to the game. Now, that ticket NFT may have unique value because that's the game that...
Steph Curry hit his three.
Steph Curry his three or scored 65 points. I was there. I was
sitting here.
Yeah. Now, you may decide that's going to be the screensaver on your phone or your computer. I'm going to save that forever. You may keep a digital copy of it, but trade the authentic, one-of-a-kind digital fingerprint of that ticket. And for the leagues and the teams, they then have an ability to know, here's all the people who are interested in Steph Curry or Kevin Garnett or Minnesota Timberwolves, whatever the team is. And so it enables us to find ways to connect to fans literally globally in ways we never could before. So it's very early days to me from a technology standpoint, but at the end of the day, as people who create special, distinctive, unique intellectual property, enormous opportunity.
Could it be a day where we can say that the NBA will come out with its own token when the education has caught up to where people are using it and it's more volatile?
Possibly, and a few of our team owners who are super sophisticated in this area have suggested maybe there should be an NBA coin. So that's something we're looking at. I don't mind being a little overly cautious in that area. I mean, I recognize there's a lot of speculation around some of those currencies too, but I so right now I'm very focused on the ways in a sort of large scale way, like with NBA Top Shot, where we can connect to millions of fans. They can experience something, they can own something, they can trade in it at the same time, use it to follow players, follow teams in the league. So again, every step along the way as new technologies emerge, sports content has been a critical factor in explosive interest, whether going back to, videotapes, to cable, to streaming, you name it.
Interest.
Sports content, particularly premium sports content, it's so unique and special that I feel like we collectively, the whole industry, has always been on the forefront, and I think that'll continue to be the case, with NFTs, with blockchain and cryptocurrencies.
Well, the one thing I love about you is that you take chances, and I like to think that the NBA is kind of the forefront of things to be tried in era where other sports, follow us. And I just want to say thank you for the interview, man. Thank you for giving me some time and coming up and talking to me. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, when we were in Cleveland, we were sitting around talking, and I said, "Come by and see me sometime."
You said that,
and you followed up. So here we are. 2 months later, we're at the NBA and we're talking. So.
I told the crew coming in. I said, "Coming to the league office used to be like going to the principal's office." Like Davey used to always say, "Yeah, come up and talk to me." And I was like, "I got to? Yeah, come on up here, let me talk." And I was like, But thank you for the invitation.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Seriously.
Yeah, thank
you, man. Seriously.
Thank you very much.
man.
Man, that was impressive. Like, you didn't have a note?
I'm a huge fan of yours, man. You know what I'm saying?
You're a great communicator.
I know the NBA has a huge list of how they viewed highlight package and how you use it. I want to be able to talk to you about being able to have just that, because I gotta have my highlights on here to be able to put people on the floor to teach this brand of basketball. So yeah, that's
easy. I mean, happy to do
okay, cool.
any of that stuff.
Appreciate it. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thanks for doing it here.
Time,
yeah.
No, thank you for inviting us, man.
The covenant will not stop.
There is something within us. Something sacred. Something worth protecting.
Silver team, on me.